There are 5 things that you need to have if you want your podcast to be something that people tune into every single week, and they're not what most people recommend. People need to spend 7 hours with you in order to buy from you. What we found from producing over 1,000 episodes is that between 20 to 40 minutes is an ideal length for a podcast. Always have the listener in mind. And what do you need to hear from me? The best thing you can do in a long form piece of content is at the end. Welcome back to How Do I Podcast, and a very happy New Year's Eve to you. I hope you are having the most amazing time with your friends and your family, getting ready to do some goal setting potentially. And that is exactly why I wanted to do this episode. I know, speaking to so many people this year, everyone is saying you need to have a personal brand in 2026. And I think for a lot of people, that's a great statement, but the how and the why and the what do I actually do is where things start to get a bit confusing. And for a lot of people, they either have a podcast and they're kind of sitting on the fence of do I go all in on this in 2026 or do I invest my time elsewhere? Or they've had an idea for a podcast for a really long time and they're like, right, 2026 is my year. I'm going to start it. I'm going to stand out. I'm going to create a podcast that everybody wants to listen to. And then they get really stuck on the, okay, what next? So I wanted to do an episode that would take you through 5 things that you need to have if you want your podcast to be something that people tune into every single week. And they're not what most people recommend. They are absolutely not what you think either. And I think New Year's Eve and coming into 2026 is such a perfect time to sit down and reflect on everything in your life, but especially your goals and where you want to take your personal brand, your business. If I speak to any person that is in the content space, every single one of them has said in 2026, if you want to stand out, if you want to build connection, you absolutely need to have a personal brand. Now, some of that is because we know that people fall in love with people instead of brands. Some of it is because of the rise of AI. And a huge part of it is because of the study that Google did that show that people need to spend 7 hours with you across 11 touch points across 4 different platforms in order to buy from you. They spent millions of dollars on this research, and they have proven that for a large majority of people, that rule is true. And so a lot of people are wanting to invest in their personal brand next year. So I'm going to kick off with those. I've also got some really cool questions from you guys as well that I'm going to answer at the end. Now, I'm going to put chapters in the description of this. So whether you're on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, you can go down into the description of this. This is a great thing to do for your own podcast, by the way. And you can see timestamps of things that I am talking about. So if you've already got your setup nailed, don't stress, just skip past that to the next chapter and you can start to engage in whatever I'm talking about there as well, whatever you find is most relevant for you and your journey right now. Before I get into the 5 steps, I want to talk about the payoff from long form content, because this is something that even I myself, I fell into this and I was really, I call it lucky in that, I started my podcast, I got offered speaking gigs, I spoke to celebrities, I got sponsorships, I got brand deals, I got all of these things that felt like they had fallen in my lap. And the really cool thing about when I replicated this and I built my second podcast was that all of those things happened again. And the even cooler part was when I did that for a client and all the same things happened again. And reflecting on that, what I found is it's because we set up every single podcast like a business. But what I think the most important question to ask you, and it is the first thing that we go into in these 5 steps, but is what is the goal for the podcast for you? And what is the goal of having more long form for you? And to give you some examples of some of the things that long form can be really good for, one is, of course, giving you additional content that you can repurpose on social media. Really clear, easy tick. The cooler parts of what long form content can do for you, we had 2 clients. One of them, she had been showing up in her space for years and years and years. She was an expert. She'd built an incredible community, incredible. And she really wanted to be perceived more as an expert. And she came to us and she was like, look, I want to be seen as the go-to for my space. This is what I'm thinking. And we spent so long trying to figure out, where was she going to sit? What were the other people in her industry talking about? Where were the gaps? And also her ideal listener. what was actually going on in their brain? What did they need to hear from her? And we have some incredible episodes on that. If you haven't listened to Anita's episode, to Mon's episode, I'll pop them both in the show notes. They are absolutely such good episodes to tell you how to get into your listener's psyche. But we sat down and we thought about this and we came up with a show plan. And she'd been posting for years. Within the second week of her podcast going live, she had a request from the Today Show to go and appear on there as an expert speaker. And then after that, the opportunities that came her way were completely insane. And it was so cool because she had been posting for a really long time. But what people needed to build that trust with her was that longer form where they spent more time with her. They found out the why behind a lot of her things as well, but they also found out her point of difference. And in long form, that is so easy to communicate versus a 30-second reel where you are like dancing for the algorithm without actually dancing, but coming up with a hook and having a payoff and having all of these like call to actions and bits and pieces that you need in short form content. In long form content, you can just be you. And for so many people, that you-ness is the reason that they want to have you as part of their world as well. So that was a really cool thing that came out of long form. There's two others though. The second one was a client who had been building their brand for years, and they were, again, really well positioned. They had an incredible community. People genuinely felt like they knew them. They loved them. They wanted to be in their world. And one of the things that they had always wanted to do was publish a book. And it turns out that the executives from a certain publisher had also earmarked this person as someone that would be great to have a book. Now, this was like 12 months before it actually happened. And every time their name came up, it was like, yeah, cool, yes. But there was always, someone else that was potentially a better fit for that time or that topic or that place. And then they launched their podcast. And literally a month after they launched, they got the phone call, hey, we actually didn't know there was so much to you. We actually didn't know all of this stuff in your story. And it was wild because this person had been online for years and years and years and years and years. But the long form, the opportunity to sit down and tell your story, and what we did for them was also included a whole heap of research and stats and facts and things that, again, positioned them as the go-to, but allowed them to kind of like, again, put their you-ness through it and show who they were. And they got a book deal a couple of weeks in. A lot of our other clients also have book deals. They have incredible speaking opportunities. For nearly every single one of our clients that is a coach, they use their podcast as their number one source of lead gen and nurture. And none of that is an accident. None of that is a mistake. So I think when you look at long form, a lot of people just see it as a shortcut to having lots of short form, to having an easy way to create content that builds a personal brand. But there is so much more to this if it is done correctly. I think if you just jump behind a microphone and you start talking and you haven't thought about these 5 things I'm going to talk about, then cool, you might have some extra content, but will that content be things that cultivate a community? Will that content be things that people actually want to listen to week after week? And will that content be the thing that positions you as the go-to in your industry? Probably not. So let's go into the 5 things that actually matter that you need to have sorted to make sure that you are. As you're listening, jot down some ideas in your notes app on a piece of paper, or just reflect on them as I'm saying them, and then come back and do this again. I'm going to pop all of the questions in a worksheet in the show notes, so make sure you download that so you can work through it as well. But the first question I want you to ask yourself is, what is the purpose of this podcast? And I do not mean that in the sense of like, how is this helping the world? Because that is also really important and something that you absolutely need to talk about. Like, I have always carried on about how important the why is, but like, what is the job of this podcast for you? What do you need it to do for yourself? Is it something that is going to generate leads for you? Is it something that is going to position you as the go-to? Is it something that is going to give you additional content? But what is that content then going to open up doors for? What is that content then going to do for you? You need to think about the job and the purpose of the podcast. If you want to have a really good return on investment from your podcast, you need to think about what would success look like. And then on the back of that, I want you to go into point number 2, which is thinking about why this podcast. Not any personal reasons here, but like, why does the world need this? Why is this something important? Why is this important to you? But also, how is this going to help other people? Because a lot of people, when they start a podcast, they will only do one of these 2 points. They will either think, oh, I want to start a podcast because I want to earn more money. Terrible idea. Your podcast will never succeed. Well, personally, I think that is a very strong statement, but I actually stand by it. Like, I think if you are in podcasting to make money, you are absolutely never going to get the results that you want. So, because it's inauthentic, you can hear it down the microphone. I can hear when you are here for the wrong reasons. So they'll either only think of it for that reason, or they will think about it from I want to help the world. I want to do all these amazing things. And then they don't see any return from this, or it doesn't benefit the rest of their lives and the rest of their goals in their business or their personal life. So they're like, this thing is amazing. I love doing this thing, but well, it's just taking a lot of time and I'm not really seeing a benefit from it. So you need to ask yourself both questions. The third question that I then want you to sit with and think about is, who is this podcast for? And we spend so long on this. We get so deep into the psyche of this person. And I think really understanding what they need from you. Like every single episode, every single show note, every single piece of content that we create for any of our podcasts, this one included, I always have the listener in mind. And what do you need to hear from me? What's going to help you to achieve your goals? What's going to be content that you actually resonate with? You're like, yes, thank you. That is exactly what I wanted to hear today. Because if I'm not designing with you in mind, I might go off on the complete wrong tangent that you actually don't benefit from and you don't need. So really good example of this, a conversation that I just had recently with Morgan Nelson. And we were talking about how as he grew his show and as he grew as a person, the things he wanted to talk about also grew. And what he realized was that the podcast wasn't doing the things that it used to do. It wasn't converting. It wasn't giving back to him. It wasn't generating the same leads that it did before, because he was talking about things that were really advanced and his listeners were still needing to just work through the basics. Nathan Chan said something similar. And I think it's really important that you're always crafting with the listener in mind, and they will grow with you. But then if you have a business and you're trying to sell from your podcast, your offering and your services and everything you give to your customers needs to grow as well. Otherwise, there's always going to be a mismatch and a disconnect between what you're talking about and what your listeners actually need. The fourth thing you need to think about is where you are promoting your episode. Now, this is going to be different for every single person. If you have a podcast that is focused on business and talking to founders behind the journey about how they've navigated challenges, maybe how they've built their team, the listeners for that, the people who are going to get so much benefit from that podcast, will probably be on Instagram. They may be on TikTok, depending what age bracket and who you're going to talk to. But if I had a podcast that was specifically talking about how to grow your career, the best place for me to post that is probably going to be Instagram one, LinkedIn as a second. Absolutely LinkedIn. If I'm talking about knitting, is a fave of mine that I love to talk to you about as an example, at a knitting podcast, LinkedIn may not be the strongest place for me to post. And so really thinking about what channels do your audience show up on and doubling down on those. Absolutely, if you want to post on every platform, you've got a system that's not taking away from your ability to do other things. If you have some VAs working with you, a scheduler, I do not like using them, but if you're just posting on a platform to post on there, but you're not investing all your time on there and it's not taking a lot of your time, great, cool, do that. But there should be one platform that you go all in on and you create content specifically designed for that platform. And Call Her Daddy is an incredible example of this. Alex Cooper, go and stalk her social content. The content that she posts on Instagram is so specific and curated. There are 5 clips. They are highly edited. They are all centered around a specific structure and type of content. And then you go on TikTok and there's 25 clips from the same episode. They are completely different. There's behind the scenes stuff. There's so many things that never make it to the Instagram feed. And that is because each platform requires different things in order for the algorithm to push you out. And also there's completely different viewers and listeners on those platforms. So make sure you know who that person is. And then when you've got that nailed, start thinking about where they're showing up and the types of content that they need to see as well. The last one is something that no one talks about. Everyone is saying you need to start a podcast in 2026, but the real question is, should you? There is a big difference between starting a podcast and creating something that people cannot wait to tune into every single week, something that positions you as the go-to, and that is your number one source of lead gen and nurture. We've produced over 1,000 podcast episodes through our production house and landed every single one of our clients on the top charts. And so every single week since I've started this podcast, I have had people in my DMs asking, how can I work with you? And so I've decided to finally, in 2026, package up all of our sales psychology, all of the marketing, all of the things we do behind the scenes to turn your podcast into a business and a brand that people want to be a part of, and make it something that you can follow and implement too. Now, this is a very small select group of people that I will be working with. And if you would like to be a part of that, DM me LMP on Instagram. I'll pop it in the show notes as well. And we can talk about whether this is the right next step for you. And it really frustrates me because it's the one that is probably the most important. And it's something that I actually haven't done well with this podcast to date, because this podcast has kind of been a really cool experiment for me. And I'm testing a lot of things in this. I'm playing around, seeing what works. I also get the benefit of testing with our clients. But the best thing you can do in a long form piece of content is at the end, tell them where to go next. Now on YouTube, this is really easy. You can have an end card at the end. It can show them related episodes that they could go. You could hint to it in your outro, but you can also reference it throughout the episode and then again at the end. So like, I've already mentioned Mon's episode in here. I've mentioned Anita's episode in here. I've mentioned some resources for you guys. I probably will talk about another couple of things that will go in the show notes. And then at the end, I might be like, if I was really strategic with this and this was a series that I was doing, maybe I would say, hey guys, make sure you send me some questions because I'm going to do another Q&A episode like this in a couple of weeks' time. Or if I had another episode coming up next week, which I know I do, I will tell you about that and why that is going to be beneficial for you. So the end of your episodes is such a powerful place to tell people where to go next. And this is not just isolated to long form, on your short form as well. At the end of every piece of content should be some form of CTA. Now, whether that's in your caption, whether that's a wrap up in the video, if they love you, they want more from you. People, and I do not have a statistic on this, but I would love to see it. Every time you include like a save, share this, send this to a friend, people are so much more likely to actually take that action. And the exact same applies for long form. So as someone who has produced over 1,000 podcast episodes, landed every single one of our clients on the top charts, these 5 things are the key to making you stand out. They are the things that are going to make your podcast something that you love, that you genuinely can't wait to record yourself, and that you also get an incredible return from, because the aim of your long form content is to achieve all the things that I spoke about at the start, but also be something that is sustainable for you, because long form content is a long game. Once you start, you are part of someone's habits. They ideally will be someone that follows you, subscribes to you, and they want to see you every single week. Right, let's go into some questions that we have from you guys as well. Now, the first one is around setup. This is a question that the team have kind of hybrid compiled together. But what is actually important in your setup? Where should you invest your money? And what are things that are just a waste of your time? So when you are recording a podcast, you obviously need to have a microphone. You, in this day and age, need to have some cameras, and to make you look good on camera, you need to have some lighting. So we obviously own a studio. This is something that we have spent a huge amount of time, money, and energy on creating something that is right. Now, you look at this setup and I can tell you right now, the stuff I have going on around me is not technically correct. Absolutely not. It's very close to it, but it is the lighting that makes me look, feel, and sound my best. And that is what is important to us in this studio. And that is what's important and what I teach our clients as well. It's like, cool, okay, technically you should probably have this, and this is why they do this and that. But like, do you like how you look on camera? If you don't, then it doesn't really matter anyway. So with your microphone, there are two different types that you can get. One of them is a USB microphone. It plugs straight into your laptop. If you're doing remote recording or anything like that, it's very, very simple and easy to use. The other ones are XLR microphones. Now, this is an XLR microphone, and I'm going to pop a little thing here of it. The bottom of them kind of looks like a smiley face. This won't plug into your computer. So to run this, you need to either record onto a device, or to run it through your computer, you need what we call an interface to connect the microphone to your computer. So a couple more steps. There are so many pros and cons to both types of microphones, and there are huge price variances between them as well. I'm going to pop something in the show notes. They're going to have literally a checklist of all the different types of equipment, what we recommend, where to buy them, discount code for you as well, because we have an amazing partnership with a couple of companies that I'll pop in there. But with your microphone, it is something that is so important to invest in. But with technology now, there are so much you can do in post-production that as long as you're not recording on your phone, and actually even if you are actually able to get a really good sound quality out. Now, obviously our preference is work with the best microphone that you possibly can, because if you are only in someone's ears, they are going to get distracted from every single little noise. And people aren't even consciously aware of this. Your subconscious disconnects. It wonders what was going on in the background. And also it diminishes your credibility every single time there is something else going on in the background. So if you can hear the guy over here rustling his chip packet, if you can hear things in the background, like there is definitely a time and a place for that, depending on the type of podcast that you are trying to create. But you don't want to make it ever hard for your listeners to hear you, because when it's hard, they associate hard with you and then they will tune out. The next thing is your cameras. Now, again, this is all comes down to your budget. Like we have incredible cameras that we use in the studio. They are Netflix quality. They are 4K. They do not overheat. We have a little hack that we've got so they don't stop recording either. They are phenomenal cameras. The biggest thing you need to be aware of, whether you're recording on your laptop, your camera, or anywhere else, is your framing, especially if you are doing online recordings, because a lot of people, including your guests, will get up so nice and close to the screen and they'll look great in your screen. But we pre-purpose content, so everything needs to be cropped for phone footage. And so what I want you to always imagine is look at your camera shot and imagine a phone box around you. What does that reel look like? Do you have enough of your body in there? Do you have enough of your arm gestures and movements? Do you just literally have a picture of your face? Whether you're a guest or a podcast host, this is one of the most important things to get right. And it's something I see so many people always forget about. And then their social media content looks crap. So I could literally go on and on and on about equipment all day. I'm going to pop everything into this downloadable in the show notes. And if you still have questions about it, definitely reach out, let me know, and I would love to help you with this. The next question is from Rose, and she asked, how long should my episode be? Really good question. And this will depend on the things that you've answered before. What type of podcast are you creating? Who are you creating it for? If you are creating a podcast for busy mums who do not have a lot of time in their day versus someone who is like perhaps someone who's commuting for work and they're traveling and they're in their car and they've got all this time, like those episodes and those audiences are very different. They have very different consumption habits and they are going to be very different experiences. What we found from producing over 1,000 episodes is that between 20 to 40 minutes is an ideal length for a podcast. Now, mine are longer because they are really tactical episodes. And I've actually found these longer episodes still perform really well. So I am looking at the consumption rate of my episodes to see how much of a particular episode does someone consume. You can get really analytical on this on YouTube, but even in podcasting, every single platform should have IAB certified statistics, and you can see how much of a particular episode has someone consumed. If you don't know where to find them, ask me, I'll send them across to you. So the length of the episode really depends on your audience, but also keep track of it. If you do something longer, does it fall off the cliff? Do people stop listening? Like we've tested this with a couple of clients. Some of them, their long format performs so well. People love them. Like we had one where we got like 110% consumption rate. Like people came back and listened to it again. And there are specific metrics and some things that you need to consider there, but they had incredible retention for their episodes, even when they were longer. The other one, we did 20-minute episodes. We all of a sudden jumped to 40, gone. So you really need to pay attention to, is this actually benefiting your audience? And is it part of your longer form plan as well? The next question is from Jess, and I love this. I am just starting my podcast and I would love your advice on how not to sound awkward or nervous, especially when I'm interviewing some people that I really look up to and admire. Love this. So I think going back to my original podcast episodes and even some of these, oh God, I cringe. Like I look back at them and they are so awkward. I was so nervous. The really cool thing about this is there was a lot of psychological studies that talk about the perception of your nerves, and only 10 to 20% of what you are feeling can be detected by other people. So if I'm standing here and I'm literally shaking a piece of paper, then obviously you guys are going to visually see this. But if I'm feeling terrified and I'm sweating and like my voice is feeling a little bit funny and I'm kind of panicking inside, anyone watching me is going to see a tiny, tiny fraction of that. And there are so many other studies that talk about how much more people are focused on themselves than you, and a myriad of things that contribute to why you being nervous often won't be seen by others. But something that I always really like to do to make sure that I'm feeling really good before an episode is, one, you know what I'm going to say before it even comes out of my mouth. Think about your ideal listener. You are not doing this episode for yourself. You are doing it for them. So what do they need to hear? How is this episode going to help them? I literally have them in my mind, like sitting down with Kayla Brelston. I'm like, okay, what if they were in the room and they had unlimited access to this person? What would they want to know? How can I help them through what I'm about to communicate? The second one for me personally is being so prepared with what I'm going to talk about. So researching, not just like having my questions written out, but I do so much research on who this person is that I'm interviewing. If it's an interview for the solo, I have like a few statistics and things and psychological stuff that I've looked at for this episode as well, so that I'm armed with a whole heap of information, regardless of where that conversation goes. And then the third thing, and I think probably the thing that has helped me to quench my nerves the most, is the conversation that I have before the episode. So next week we have an episode coming out with Kayla at Cenas, who I'm so excited for this episode. I absolutely cannot wait for you guys to hear it. And before that episode, I sat down and we were literally talking about the most random topics. We were talking about her kids. We were talking about the trip that she just had to Dubai. We were talking about the social media content and a million other things other than the podcast before we sat down. And there are really big benefits to this. One, it's a really cool conversation. It's a great way to break the ice. It's a good way to get to know them a little bit more, but it also makes everyone feel really comfortable. And I think if you can remember that with podcasting, the best thing about it is if you set off on the wrong foot, if you start to say something and you don't like how you've said it, none of this is live. You can cut all of this out. And like, I think I did the intro to this particular podcast 3 times because I just started talking about my year and how many things we've done. And I went on about that for about 10 minutes and then realized, what is the benefit to you of knowing that? Like, cool. Okay. You can actually just go and see that on my social media if you want to know about my year. So really thinking about the environment that you're cultivating and little things you can do to really enhance that. Like when we are in a hotel setting with guests, something I really want to incorporate next year is having like their favorite drink there when we're ready, having snacks that I know that they will like, having a little like area set up for them. Do they have a best side? Do they want to sit on a particular part of the couch? And then getting them involved. Like I show them the cameras and I ask them, are you happy with this? Because you don't want people sitting there like fidgeting and feeling like, oh, do I look good? No, like show them. Do it. If you don't have, we set up the big TVs in the hotel room, but like do a little test record and then show them what it looks like. Be like, okay, cool. This is what it's going to, if you're on a remote recording, this is what it's going to look for social media. Are you happy with that? Give them time to adjust their setting as well, because the more that they are comfortable, the more you will be comfortable as well. This one is from Matt, who is also just starting his podcast and who's asked, what kind of content should I post on social media? Oh, this question. I love this question. Okay. Again, I'm going to drop Monique from the Socialistas episodes in the show notes, because that episode in particular, we literally go through a content plan. Like you should post this the day before, the day of. It is a masterclass on where you should be posting, why you should be posting, and how you should be posting. But I think, again, first thing, always back to your listener. Where are they? those are your platforms, right? And then on social media, the easy thing to do is to clip this up into something that people can watch. That is so easy. Everyone with a podcast does it. The next level of that is clipping this up into a trailer. So something that creates suspense, creates hype, gets people excited, gets them wanting to go and listen to your episode. Think Diary of a CEO or like a movie trailer. It's great for the start of your YouTube videos and also really great on short form on Instagram and TikTok to drive people to the episode. The pieces of content that I have seen perform the best this year aren't either of those. They do really well. They do really well, and often they will pop off. But the things that have gotten us the most conversion from platform to listener, and that is what I'm optimizing for right now. I'm not optimizing to go viral. I'm not optimizing for anything other than converting from platform to listener. And also, I measure personally the amount of saves and shares, because if something is savable and is shareable, that in my mind is a really good piece of content. So if you have different things that you are measuring for, of course that might change. But the best piece of content are carousels. So things that might be like, it could just be static images from the episode with like text overlaid at the top. It could be a teaching carousel. We've done examples of all of this on How Do I Podcast, so go and check those out. The other piece of content that has performed so well is a piece to camera like this without a microphone. That's literally me telling you why you should listen to this podcast. And I'm in that. What I am always trying to do is deliver you value that you could actually just watch that piece of content on its own and get so much value from it. You actually don't need to go and listen to the episode, but I've probably left something out. So if you got value from it and you want more, the more is in the podcast episode. And we do that the night before or the day before the episode goes live. The other types of content that you absolutely should be posting on social media are opportunities for your audience to engage back with you. So what I see so many people do is they post their podcast and then they're just like, bye. And they don't come back to next week. And then there's another post about my podcast and then they don't come back to next week. And if you're doing that, cool, I might see it on that day. But for your podcast, if you're not excited about your podcast, if you're not excited about the episode that you've created, if you're not excited to share it with people and tell people and rave about how good it is and why they should listen, nobody else is going to be excited about it. So what we've started doing, and you might have seen, is we will create opportunities to have a two-way conversation with our audience as well. Because me personally, I genuinely want to hear what you guys have to say. Like I really, honestly, like that is what I'm doing this for. I care so much about what you think about the podcast, what you want to see, what you want to hear from. Like it's fun, me going and interviewing these people. Do you know what the best thing is and the best feeling is when you have a problem and I'm able to help you solve it through this long form content. So types of things that we will do is stories to talk about potentially something that happened in the episode and ask your opinion, to even weave segments through the episode or guest questions that allow you to give your opinion on it as well. So we'll post stories and ask you what you thought about this particular episode. So during the episode, I might say something like, this was my favorite piece of content from this year. But I don't know, what did you think? What was your favorite piece? Is there anything else that I should have added to my top 10 or something like that? For this particular episode, I am continually asking you guys, if you got more questions, come talk to me. Come have a chat with me. If there was a specific thing that I had an opinion on, a really great example of this back and forth to your audience communication is Shameless and also Life Uncut. I reference these guys quite often because they do it really well. Life Uncut will have an Ask Uncut segment, and it's often like questions that are written in that are solving some sort of like moral, ethical, cultural dilemma or just a funny story. And they will ask, for advice, kind of like Dear Dolly or Ask Your Diary kind of segment. And they'll be like, hey, like this is happening in my life. What do you think? What should I do? And Britt and Laura, the host, and Keisha, the producer as well, will jump in and they'll be like, okay, I think you should do la la la, this is why, but open it up to the audience as well. And so having content like that, then what they do is they put it on their stories with a poll, with an opportunity for people to question. They'll also often repurpose one of those into a clip that then allows debate and discussion in the comments. Another really great example of this is Maddie Jason, Laura's husband's podcast. I think it's Two Doting Dads. They also also have a really great example of back and forth with their audience and creating content that standalone piece of content encourages debate, encourages people to have an opinion, to have a comment, to have a voice, to want to engage with that particular piece of content. So that content is also really key. And then in terms of your stories, other things that you can always do is like polls, question box, you can repurpose quotes. There are so many different ways that you can package a social media a long form piece of content for social media. Gary Vee did this guide a few years ago. I'll find it and I will pop it in the show notes as well, because it was phenomenal. It was like how to repurpose your content. And I think it was like he turned one piece of long form into, I think, over 70 pieces of content. So you can repurpose it really well. Should you? That is the $1 million question. And it absolutely should not be done with every piece of content. It just depends on your ideal listener and what they need to hear as well. We've covered so much today, but these 5 things are the things that you need to get right if you want your long form to win in 2026. And if you are serious about creating long form content that actually has a purpose, that will actually generate results for you, but also has the opportunity to really help people, to create a movement, to create something that people want to be a part of, and to create something that people actually want to consume. If you have any other questions, please send me a DM. Let me know. We are going to regularly do Q&A episodes in 2026. So I would love to make sure that I am answering the things that you want to hear and that you are actually struggling with. And if you're still on the fence about whether long form is something that you should double down on in 2026, send me a DM. Let me know. What are you trying to create? Who are you trying to help? What do they need to hear? If you're stuck on any of those things, absolutely reach out. And on that note, something that I am playing around with at the moment, people have been asking me to do this for literally years, and I've done it a couple of times, but I feel like in 2026, people don't need more information. Nobody wants more information. We have ChatGPT, we have Claude, we have all of these incredible tools that can give us all the information that we could ever desire. What people want are shortcuts to success, and they want to know how to implement it for their business and for their goals. And so what I want to create this year is something that will allow you guys to do that, that will allow you to become the best podcaster, the go-to, the person that everybody wants to listen to every single week. And these 5 questions are part of that, but I really want to create something that is going to fast track you to the place that you want to be. And that will be coming soon. It's going to be very, very small to begin with. I am only going to be working with a very small group of people. But if that is something that you have questions on, that you want help with, absolutely reach out, let me know. I would love to hear about what you want to create and the impact that you want to have in 2026 and potentially work with you as well. Now, I also teased it a little bit before, but next week's episode, oh my goodness, guys, we are sitting down with Kayla Itsinas. She has more followers than Australia, New Zealand, and some other random country that we couldn't find the exact number of combined. It is over 40-something million followers across her platforms. And she has built the most incredible community. 98% of them are women, which I also think is astounding. But what is the most incredible part is how she has taken her content through that time as well, and the way that she structures everything. You'll be so surprised to hear about what goes on behind the scenes of her and her personal brand. So that episode is coming up next week. If you are not already following, make sure you do, because you will not want to miss that episode, and I will see you next week.